Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome to a new series on the channel. We are following in the footsteps of a few of our contemporaries, a few of our brother channels here, with a horror hot take series. And yeah, I've been watching like Killjoy Jake. Obviously, we're good friends with him. He's doing this, and Cody Leach is also doing this on his channel and a few others. And I just think they are just some fun videos. It gives kind of I think a more therapeutic kind of discussion when it comes to maybe letting the word out of one of your most dark kept secrets when it comes to horror films that you want to defend or that you hate. And I think that this is going to kind of diversify some of the conversation for us on the channel. So yeah, we were talking about this, and I just had the idea because Luke and I have a dirty little secret, and that is that Prometheus, a film that, dare I say, is probably the most controversial Alien film in the franchise now, is kind of a movie we really love. Now, I know I put masterpiece in the title. I don't necessarily know if I'd go that far, but I certainly think that this movie gets a lot more hate than it deserves. Luke, how do you feel about Prometheus?
Oh, absolutely. I think this one is a little divisive when it comes to what you want out of an alien film. Maybe people just weren't expecting this type of film when it had come out. Um, I instantly love this one when it came out. As we had that such a long layover from Alien Resurrection, and the property was pretty much dead, and then we got those rumblings of, hey, we're getting something in the Alien franchise, and I was extremely on board from that first trailer. So this one I was really anticipating, and when I got in here and I actually checked this one out, I got to say I revisit Prometheus fairly regularly in terms of the Alien franchise. It's just something that I think has a different tone, is a different take. It really provides something different than what we had gotten in those first four installments.
100%. And, I think the biggest issue that people have with this movie, it all comes down to just what you expect when a movie is marketed as a prequel. Everybody wanted to walk into Prometheus and walk out with us ending up on LV-426, and just that's where we were supposed to be. And that's not what this is. This was a very, very early prequel in a sense. I don't even know if I even classify this as much of a prequel anymore as a film that is set in the Alien universe. I know that Covenant does start to tie things in a bit closer. Now we have our thoughts and opinions. We love this movie. Covenant's a whole nother story. We might have to talk about that at some point, but I feel like a lot more people side with us on Covenant than Prometheus, because I think that this is way cooler when you think of it as what Ridley Scott has said about this movie. And that's one of the things that I think actually saved it for me, because you remember HBO used to, whenever there'd be like a new movie coming out, I don't know how familiar you are with this, they would have like interviews and little tiny mini docs that are probably about 10,
Yeah.
15 minutes long. Ridley Scott was talking about Prometheus, and I just remember watching this at my grandparents' house. I was there for the summer, and it was just on in the middle of the night, and I don't know why I was watching it, but he starts talking about how it's going to be the story about the engineers. It's about the alien that you saw in the chair in Alien. And I just thought, that's so cool. I can't believe we're going to get to learn more about that. And I think that saved me, because I went into Prometheus and absolutely loved it from day one. And I think, again, the issue that a lot of people had was this isn't really like a direct prequel. It's in the same universe. It takes place before the events of Alien, but it's telling a much broader story. And it's kind of why I love it.
Yeah, and I second that as well. Where you look at something that's deemed a prequel, and there are almost two camps, I think. And that one camp that you spoke of is, hey, we want that direct connective tissue to say this is the prequel, and we're going to jump into Alien, and this is really the start of it. We can draw those parallels. We know exactly the direction we're going in. I'm a fan of what Prometheus did here, where we do have that kind of farther time jump where yes, this does take place before Alien, but it has some connective tissue, but it's not direct connective tissue. It's something where you can kind of see the progression of where we're going to eventually get, but you have so much room to play. Where hey, you take that one little aspect from the original film, and that's what we're gonna kind of expand upon and really tell a different and unique story. And I think this one, all the aliens have that idea of body horror and with chest bursters and things here, but when we dive into Prometheus, I think it's on a different level for me, where you have David tainting the drink, and
Love it, dude.
it's so well done. David as a character is just, someone I can get on board with for being such an asshole. And,
Mhm.
it's like you can understand where he's coming from and what he wants to achieve here. And then kind of using these human beings as his guinea pig to kind of uh, create his own life in a sense. And, as soon as he taints that drink, it's a nonstop thrill ride for me because it's like, "Oh, what is going to happen?" I'm so tense during this. And then when all hell breaks loose and it's right outside of the ship and everything's going on. And we have our one character where we have the flamethrower, and there's so many jarring scenes in here from that progression. So it's like, I love that they have so much room to play here and really put their own stamp on here and not just really manufacturing another installment in the Alien franchise. Prometheus is really a great standalone film.
And that's exactly how I love to watch it now too, is again just a film that takes place in the Alien universe. I know there's a kind of a, I think it was Ridley Scott who has said it now, but I know it was kind of a broad theory for a long time that he had like posed that even Blade Runner takes place in the same universe as Alien, but it's like just either, I believe, further into the future. I'd have to check the dates on those, but I know that he loves to play in this kind of sci-fi universe, and I think that this is the best way that you can kind of look at Prometheus, because once you kind of step away from that direct prequel angle and you actually accept the film for what it is, I think that it has a lot more to give when it comes to the idea of just what the basics of Alien was, and that is just that there is a creature that is taking your DNA, human DNA, and kind of using it to its advantage, taking the best parts of that and creating the perfect organism, the perfect killing machine. And, I think that that is just something that you get to watch in Prometheus, but on such a smaller scale, which is kind of ironic because it's such an epic film. But you watch it like almost like the black goo that they use, this kind of bio weapon in a sense that the engineers have developed. It's kind of just figuring it out. It's kind of just mixing the best parts that it can find and creating these monsters and getting people sick. I mean, like just seeing the difference between how it affects Logan Marshall Green's character Charlie and how it affects Numi Rapace just because they have sex. And so it's like it literally, the goo, that just that one drop that David puts in there changes him on a completely like molecular scale, and then that affects Numi Rapace and gives you one of the best body horror sequences I think of all time. I mean, right up there with the chest burster scene for me is when Numi Rapace is in that pod, the medical pod, and has to have surgery performed on herself. Like, I remember watching that in the theater and just absolutely, my mouth was agape. And I still think that that is just the creme de la creme best sequence in this whole film.
Yeah, just that scene alone, there is just so much brutality in can being conveyed through the lens. I think, just the idea of being able to put yourself in Dr. Shaw's headspace of you have this foreign thing inside of you. When David says it's not a conventional fetus and she wants
Yeah,
to see it, and he does not allow her to see it, and your mind's racing. We're already playing in the alien universe, and you're like, what's this thing gonna look like? And I think people are expecting that conventional kind of what it
they
chest
wanted
bursters
that
when
chest
yeah.
burster. Yeah.
And I absolutely love the dynamic there because it's still again, I'm always tense when I'm watching this film because of so many beats in this film. And I got to say that is one of them that's just so unsettling when she performs the surgical procedure on herself. And I think there's just a different level of just ickiness for me when this thing
Yes.
comes out and it's squirming above her and she's like trying to slide out from under it, and it's just like this jerky movement of it's trying to get loose, it's stuck, and then she keeps encapsulates it into that surgical enclosure, and you think, hey, maybe we're done here. Of course we're not. But, just her trying to shimmy out from this thing that has just come out of her, that is technically part of her, and she's trying to get away from it. Just, it hits you on a different level of uneasiness that some of the other Alien installments weren't able to achieve that for me.
And you know what? This part that gets me is how it's in that little sack. I don't know if that's like supposed to be her uterus or whatnot, but like it's in that sack, and it cuts open, and it's
Yes.
just all that liquid just falls onto her open wound, and it's like, oh my god! Like, could you think about that?
And
Like,
it's like it poses so many questions. You don't know what this is going to look like
no,
eventually. Like conceptually, we've seen the Alien installments. We know what chest bursters look like. We know what face huggers do. We can kind of, draw those parallels. We can connect the dots as viewers watching that. But then, like you're saying, all that fluid back into her open wound. Hey, we don't even know if this is a one-off instance. Just because she got rid of this foreign body, that doesn't mean that others are not going to arise or what that's going to look like from a physiological standpoint. So, it's just, again, it hits you to the core. I think it's one of those scenes that even after the credits are rolling is going to sit with you for a long while.
I absolutely agree. And this is one that every time I go back and watch it, I find myself just getting so absorbed into it. So like when you say that, how you just like you get sucked into this movie, it does that for me too. And I feel like that's it just the way people have described this movie to me and their thoughts and feelings. I don't get it. Cause like I just feel like they have to be going into it with those expectations of, oh, it's a disappointment because we didn't get a direct xenomorph, which we got like I dare I even say it's like the most primal basic form of a xenomorph. I know they have a name for it. I don't remember what it is exactly at the end there, but it's like I that is just like a nice little wink and nod to the audience, I think, as just saying like, hey, yeah, like as you can see, you know, this creature births this creature, and it just kind of moves until we get this kind of perfect organism, and that is still just the lowest evolved form of it. And again, I think that that's just my favorite part of this movie that I feel like so many people overlook, is just how it is taking those basic concepts from the first Alien and really just expanding on it. Like, we're watching basically the way that I look at it is this planet that they're visiting is a giant laboratory for these engineers. They put this black goo on here, and they're just trying to figure out how to make this super weapon that is the xenomorph. Because we see that thing on the wall that everybody says looks like a xenomorph. If you want to look at it like from this, like, not even like biblical, but just like from these like perspectives of these engineers, like these godlike figures to us, those could easily just be interpreted as schematics, as just like blueprints, what they're trying to create, but they just don't have the formula right. And we just go in there and start playing with all their toys, and we're just humans. We don't know what we're doing. That's where the horror of Prometheus really works for me.
Yeah, and that theme of, evolution, creationism, and they even say blatantly to David's not going to know how to create life or what that feeling is going to be an
He figures
authentic.
it out. Oh
Yeah,
boy,
and
he does.
it's like to look at where we are in Alien and where we start in Prometheus, where this isn't the polished process. The start of Alien, that's the polished process. That's kind of, you know years upon years of evolution in figuring out how to do it correctly, just from one body to the next body to the next body. And for me, that ending where we do get that semblance of a xenomorph is just, it was a bonus round for me, where I was like, I
Oh yeah.
don't need this. I love, where we have this big creature flop onto our engineer, and that's the end of it. It's like I love when it just goes limp, because it's like you can understand what exactly is happening there. But I didn't know necessarily if we were going to see anything. But when we do, that's just like, it's just a gratifying experience to be like, oh, this is the start of where we're going to go. For me, not having a xenomorph throughout the entirety of the film, I didn't need that here. This is a prequel. I love the idea that the table that they set here, but then getting that extra, that it's just a cherry on top to be like, okay, now we have a direction. For me, that was enough. I understand where people are like, we need a xenomorph, we need that story. Hey, for me, we've seen that. We have 4 other films that lean on the xenomorph and what it can do. For this one, I think it was so well done from that beat perspective, introducing the engineers was such a great concept for me, and understanding, almost human beings being a disappointment and saying we have
Yeah.
to go to Earth to kind of start over to create something different. And just when that black goo starts seeping out of the containers, it's like, and I know I'm jumping all over the place, but when that thing sucks into the one guy's suit and then goes
Oh
down his throat,
yeah,
oh
the
my gosh,
little
like
cobra a
yeah,
worm
like
thing. Love it.
that thing. There's so many unsettling scenes in here, and it's like they start bombarding you as this thing starts getting going. And yeah, this isn't a conventional alien story. It's that kind of start of what we're going to get, but boy, do they make those beats count, because there's a handful of things. I can make a list of things in here that I absolutely love. Does the CGI hold up? Not necessarily. I mean, it's not the most offensive thing, but when you're going into so much great practical effects with the Alien franchise, it just is where we were at. And was this 2011, 2012?
2012. Yeah.
That's where we were at, unfortunately. Hey, look at the thing. That's just what studios wanted, unfortunately. But does it kill the film for me? No, because I think there's such a great story here.
And as much as I want to praise Ridley Scott for this film in general, I can say that I do think a lot of that CGI usage falls on his shoulders a good bit, because of just how big the ideas were for this film. And at the same time, I can't fault him, because I mean, he's trying to tell this big epic story, as to where Alien's this kind of closed, smaller claustrophobic horror film. And I think that at the end of the day, yeah, some of it looks dated, but some of it still really works for
Yeah,
me. I think that where they use practical effects, especially in that surgery scene, I mean, it all holds up so well. And yeah, I think that like the scene where Fifield comes back, I wish that would have been a little bit more practical. You can tell
yeah,
by his face that it's a lot of CG augmentation. But you know what's interesting about that? If you didn't know, I found this out when I got the Blu-ray, because I watched all the bonus features and stuff back then, and it actually, they had a different design for him. He was going to have a head that was more xenomorph like, it was going to be more alien like, but they changed it, and that's why it looks more CGI like, because they wanted him to resemble it. And then Ridley Scott thought that it was just a little bit too on the nose, because he was already going to have, which I saw in the notes here, it's ultramorph at the end there. So he was going to already have that, and he was just like, I don't think I need to keep
double
hinting
dip.
too hard at it. But hey, I guess that's what the people would have preferred, maybe. I don't know. Because, yeah, I think that this movie is totally underrated, and it is one of my favorites of the Alien franchise for sure. Dare I say, I put this as probably, as we're sitting right now, we have not seen Romulus. I'm going to say this is probably my number 4. I probably put this just ahead of Resurrection and the AVP films. I put Covenant at the bottom, and I put Alien 3 just ahead of this. And, it's like, just like with Terminator and Terminator 2, Alien and Aliens, I mean, it's column A, column B. It's one or the other. They're always switching for my number 1 spot. I think it's like I watch Alien and I'm like, this is my number 1. I watch Aliens, this is my number 1. They're just two perfect films for me.
Yeah, now I'm right there with you. This falls in my fourth as well. We're on the complete same page. Alien versus Aliens. That's it's such a variety pack. Two different tones, but they both work. I think it really
Hmm.
depends on what
Two
mood you're
sides of
in.
the same coin,
Yep,
and they work
absolutely.
so great.
In Prometheus for me is something where I can watch this and be satisfied. I don't need to prep myself and watch an Alien film and then dive into
Mm-mm.
Prometheus. I don't have to watch Prometheus and then have to watch an Alien film immediately afterward. I will be honest, when I watch Prometheus, I do get hungry to watch an Alien film. So, it doesn't happen right after, probably happens within a week, 2 weeks, because I do get that notion that, hey, I got to put on an Alien film. But I think this one works perfectly as a standalone film, and I think that's what prequels should do. It shouldn't lean too much onto the following franchise. I think it should be a standalone film. It should bring its own lore, and just be its own fun and unsettling kind of film. And that is verbatim what Prometheus is.
Yeah, and I think, like, I know I don't want to turn this into an Alien Covenant discussion, but I mean, just to see the change, because Covenant we have a lot of issues with. So I'll pose this to you guys. If you like this video and you like this hot take, maybe if you want to consider that a hot take follow-up or whatever of Alien Covenant, Luke and I will sit down and talk about that. I'm sure you can get us to rant. We used to rant about that movie quite a bit. But
That next morning after seeing Covenant.
oh my god, dude. Yeah, seriously, it's legendary. But I gotta say that film, when you watch Prometheus and then you watch Covenant, because I've done that a handful of times, honestly, where I've watched them one right after another. I don't know why. Maybe thinking Covenant will be all right this time, but you see, like, the first half of that movie is like, okay, they're really still playing into the themes of Prometheus. There's still a lot of shadows and stuff in there, and then you see the shift where it was just like studio was like, dude, you got to make this an alien movie, and then it just turns into that. Everything feels so rushed. There's no pacing. There's nothing. You honestly, I can feel Ridley Scott's passion for that story, just like in a vacuum, as opposed to Prometheus, where I feel like out of all of his most recent films, I would say this and The Martian like feel like the two most complete things that he's done, where I can sit there and say, and maybe The Last Duel, I forgot about that one, where I can say, like, this is prime Ridley Scott. I still consider Prometheus prime Ridley Scott. And I know people have an issue with like some of the stuff with the scientists, touching the creature, and then her not running to the side when the ship is. It's like, if those are what you're complaining about, because it still has to be a movie at the end of the day, it still has to be entertaining, people have to do things to make situations happen, then you're clearly just looking for issues. You're just not happy, because I don't see those as like ruining this film. This is still a great, very fun, very exciting, and thought-provoking sci-fi horror film.
Absolutely. It does inject that kind of idea of evolution, creationism, and starts asking those questions, which we didn't necessarily get in the Alien installment. So, I think this was pretty much a passion project for Ridley Scott in terms of what he wanted to say and kind of the direction he wanted to go with the Alien franchise. And then you kind of look at Alien Covenant, hence more so the name as well, where, it's kind of back into form, and we want to start injecting those conventional alien ideas rather than kind of going off down a different avenue that the Alien franchise lore has established, and really making its own voice and saying, hey, these are going to be three separate films establishing, in the Alien franchise, in the universe, but hey, we're trying to say something different. We're trying to tell something different, and we want to bring a variety of a story here. So, I think that's really what I go to Prometheus for. I think I've watched Covenant one time since my theatrical experience, and both times were very underwhelming for me. Maybe I'll go revisit it, especially if we're going to do a video on it, to see if, my stance is still the same. I would pretty much bet that it is, just because I felt that there were some plot holes. There were things that didn't make sense, especially when you're looking at the time period from, taking place before the Alien movie and technology and things, where Prometheus, I didn't have any of those questions. It's such a standalone film, something different. I was just able to enjoy that experience more.
I feel like our Alien Covenant video would be 2 hours long, because there's so many issues I have. And not to lie, there are a lot of things that I was super into. There was a lot of good stuff in that movie. It's just it doesn't do it for me like Prometheus does. Prometheus, I think, it is just a perfect package when it comes to telling a prequel that is, again, a prequel to Alien, but in a broader sense. It's not looked at as a prequel, like, a traditional studio prequel film. And for this being a studio movie to take the swings that it did, I think it's such a shame that this movie got panned and just beat up so hard, because I would love to see more films do stuff like this, where it's like, yeah, we have an established franchise, we have something that is like really near and dear to people's hearts, but we want to explore other sides of it. We want to open that universe, but everything has to do the Star Wars thing, where it's like, we have to watch how Darth Vader became Darth Vader, we have to see Luke be born, we have to do it. It's like, no, dude, like, tell more stories like this, especially in sci-fi horror. I think, like, you can go so much deeper into this universe and not just have to see xenomorphs every film. I think, like, that's one of the things that gets me so excited about this film is like if this would have been a bigger success, and it made a lot of money, but like if it would have been critically and the fans would have liked it a lot more, we could have seen more of that. And I feel like that might be the biggest issue I have with Covenant. Is just I feel like it does feel like, okay, now we got to speed things up and get to the xenomorph, when we could have seen God knows what other evolutions of these creatures and other things that this stuff creates. Like it's just one of those things where I will always watch this film, smile and have a good time, but at the same time I will think, man, I just feel like everybody did this movie so dirty.
Yeah, I think at the time, I think maybe if it came out now, it
I
might,
think, yeah,
I think there would be an audience for it just because I think we're in a different place cinematically in what the audiences are expecting. Back then, I think it was just we want our basic Alien film, which is
it had
fine,
been
but
so long, and I
yeah,
think that was the problem.
there was such a long layover, but then for the and especially a lot of people not being in the theater really remembering Alien Resurrection and how that fell into form with the Alien franchise, but just didn't really hit those points. And then for Prometheus to kind of come out of the gate and start carving its own path and playing with the lore, and it's such a lush type of lore where it's like, hey, you can
Hmm.
really do anything. You look at, hey, there's going to be a video coming out here rather soon on Alien 3, and just how many scripts have come out from there and the lore that's been played with, and how I think at that time maybe audiences wouldn't be ready for how they played with that lore, but I think nowadays there's certainly an audience for it. So I love that idea of being able to. There's so much room to play in this, and it doesn't always have to be that exact face hugger, chest burster, xenomorph, and we're going from there, where it's like we can take different beats, we can do something different, and that's what Prometheus did here. So I'm excited to see what this is going to look like, what the reception is going to look like for Prometheus even 10 years down the line. I think as we get back in the driver's seat with the Alien franchise, hopefully there's going to be more after Alien Romulus, fingers crossed. And people go back and look at Prometheus, rediscover this one and say, hey, they did do something different. Had they tried to provide a fresh take. They tried to do something different with the lore. I'm excited to see what that is going to look like from an audience perspective.
I agree. And, I think the thing that was kind of a missed opportunity, and this is the last piece I'll leave it on because I know we said we were going to do this for 15 minutes, and I should have known better that we were going to talk about too much of this movie. But we talk about the Neil Blomkamp script a lot and what that was going to be and how that was going to be a direct follow up to Aliens and how cool that was going to be and how awesome that sounded. And there was a point when that was greenlit and Ridley Scott's sequel was greenlit. And I just don't understand why we couldn't live in a world with both, where Ridley Scott could take his time, make movies that are in the Alien universe that will eventually lead to that ship on LV-426. But he could take his time and tell different stories and lead us in there and really expand the world. And we could still have, aliens come out, and we could still have films like Alien Romulus come out, which takes place between 1 and 2. It's like I feel like the fact that studios at that time were so dead set on limiting themselves to, well, we can't have both of these. It'll be brand confusion and whatnot. It's like, I don't think so. I think you would be able to satisfy both camps. If you don't like the Ridley Scott stuff, that's fine. If there are people like us who want to see the slow build, the slow burn up to what this all was, that's great. We have it. And then you can have your films like the Blomkamp one. We're going to be there for both. Luke and I are too big of Alien fans to not. But I think like that was such a missed opportunity. Because yeah, it's like I'm just as excited for Romulus as much as I love Prometheus, but it is one of those things where it's like this really showed that you can expand this world to such a wider degree that just doesn't have to be, oh, we have to work within the framework of those first 4 films.
Yeah, they never secluded themselves to like, a 10-year mark to say this is the only time that it happens. The Alien lore is so expansive already. You can set any date and time that you like and really play with something like that. So, I'm excited to see where the franchise is going to go. I think there's an understanding there now to say, hey, we can have um a TV series come out that's set on
That's
Earth, and
true.
we can have Alien Romulus in the theater, And there is a place for so many different alien stories out there, and we just don't have to, seclude to one date and time now. We can tell so many different stories with so many different creatives because there is so much lore. There's so many ideas out there. It's time to take advantage of those. So, I'm excited to see what Alien Romulus is going to lead to. I know we have some other alien properties on the horizon already. So, gosh, I'm just absolutely excited. And Prometheus, what a treat for having such a long layover after Alien Resurrection, having to leaving that sour taste in your mouth, I would say.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I know that people will eat you up in the comments for saying that a couple times because we get it. There were Alien and Predator films, but they're in their own timeline. We all know that those are kind of doing their own thing. And I think that those films were fun. But yeah, when Luke's talking about the layover, it's like from a pure Alien film. That's what we got out of Prometheus, whether you like it or not.
And yeah, I guess I didn't really think too much of it, where it's kind of like, I don't know, Alien AVP for me is just kind of fun. We're not establishing lore. You should go into that already knowing the lore. It's like Freddy versus Jason, where it's like,
exactly,
you don't need to know the background of these characters. If you're going in to watch that film, you're just going in to have fun.
We are here to watch these two monsters fight. We're not here to, see how it connects the universes. Like, maybe now that we've had Prey be a success, and if Alien Romulus hits, maybe we could work towards something that actually connects them. But for now, those movies are just slam bam, thank you ma'am, action fun. Love it. But yeah, guys, that is our hot take session on Prometheus. Let us know down below how you guys feel about this one. Are we still on an island of our own, or are you going to go back and give this one another shot and let us know if you're going to be joining us on our little island over here? Yeah, I again love this movie. I think that it definitely deserves more love and appreciation than it gets. And yeah, let us know if you guys want that follow-up Covenant video. We'd love to talk about it. I'm sure Luke would love to sit down and watch that one again.
Yes,
again, like I said, when I get excited for Alien, I can't help it. I watch them all. I've already watched Covenant after I watched Prometheus. It disappointed me again. What can I say? But yeah, it's definitely exciting times for Alien fans. And again, if you haven't checked out Prometheus in a while, give it another watch. Alrighty, guys, that's going to wrap us up here. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.
Do the hard shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna smash your ass. 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 Splattercast, gonna smash your ass.